I made a huge mistake in one of my videos and I want to get the story right. Grading can be really complicated. Sometimes the graders get it wrong. Sometimes the card shop gets it wrong. Sometimes the group server gets it wrong. And sometimes even the collector doesn't know what's going on. Well, today's video is dedicated toward correcting something that happened at the Bay Area card show. These SGC cards, SGC wouldn't grade these cards. Well, there's actually a deeper explanation to that, and that's what today's video is dedicated to. Some people like PSA, Beckett, SGC, Arena Club, or all the other grading companies. What I want to correct is we filmed a video about SGC at the Bay Area Card Show. The president of SGC commented on the video, said, hey, what was put in this video isn't right. And being the content creator I am and wanting to get the story right, I said, why don't we hop on a call? Let's get the story right. And I want to learn something new. You guys, I've been in the industry for a long time. To have the CEO, president, lead of a company reach out directly on my YouTube and then actually want to educate me directly on a Zoom call is pretty good. Peter's a great guy. If you guys, I'm sure a lot of you grade with SGC. I've said it for years, and I'm just going to be transparent. My favorite grading companies in this order, it goes PSA, Beckett, SGC, Arena Club, and then every other company. That's just how I feel. For some of you guys, it might be different, but I learned a lot in this video, and this video is dedicated toward an explanation about sports card grading, and Peter just went down the list. He answered all my questions. So if you guys want to learn something about grading and sports card grading in general, this is a great educational video, and I wanted to dedicate one of the Vlogmas videos. I didn't know which one. I'm on the road right now, so I kind of needed to have a filler, and this is the one that I've been waiting to do. So with that, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Christine's got the 10-minute auction. Let's see if I can win some big stuff. So here's what I'm looking at. So I'm always on here. I refresh. I've been doing this during Christmas. Honestly, we're gonna give some of this stuff away, so stay tuned, guys. I'm gonna have a big couple Christmas giveaways combining in pristine, whatnot, and all the good stuff on that we've been buying. So that's Jose Canseco, 46 bucks. I think it's like 43 seconds left. I'm not gonna bid though. See if there's anything good on here. Damn, that's pretty cool. Ari Lehman. It's only at 11:55. Damn. Taylor Swift, man. Taylor Swift's taking over the. Not only is she taking over the sport of football, she's taking over our freaking hobby, man. Come on. Anyway, you guys, links down below. Go bid on some cool stuff. Let's get in this interview. It's pretty good stuff. What is going on, guys? Jay or AK Mojo Sports coming at you guys with Peter from SGC. Peter, want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Jay, thanks so much for sharing your audience with me. I appreciate the opportunity. My name's Peter Steinberg. I'm the CEO of SGC, and I'm looking forward to kind of educating, informing, and just kind of, shooting it about cards.
So guys, I made a video in Tampa. We recorded a guy that had graded cards with SGC. They labeled them as authentic, and then PSA put numbers on them. And I personally will admit that I didn't know enough about the situation. I still don't know what happened with the cards, but Peter's we're gonna go through an education on grading sports cards and why SGC didn't put a number grade and why PSA put 7 OC or a number on the cards. So Peter's here. We're both good friends. It was no bad blood. I even changed the title, and I kind of figured, we kind of stretched it, and I told Peter I have other people working for me, kind of trying to test out thumbnails and all that. And I'm here to tell Peter, using the word lying and all that, we just didn't know enough information. So we're here to right the wrong.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. And everyone, makes a mistake or slips up. We obviously have a big team here. It's impossible to avoid them, but I think what really matters is how you respond. And I think having me on says a lot. So I appreciate it.
Dude, you stepping up. I mean, freaking CEO, bro. That's crazy. So, all right, here we go. I'm going to share the screen. We'll watch the video together, and then I will kind of want you to to react and kind of tell me what's going on. All right.
Sure.
All right. So let's see if this works. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
Look at this. We're working on thumbnails now. All right. So here's the video. Let me mute it a little bit so we can get the intro. You can see it?
Yes.
There, perfect. All right, this guy, cool. Okay, here we go. Ready? Let's do this. Look at me.
story. I love walking around. This is what I miss, walking around shows and hearing it. Just like, we got a story. Right.
One of the craziest thing in this industry is it's all subjective in grading. And you can go ahead and send cards in and you get a good idea for vintage and you send them into SGC.
Okay.
And they come back authentic.
With no
All of them authentic.
All right, so I'm gonna start and stop. Actually, I think this is like more like this is kind of modern. Nobody really does these. So I have a question for you. So labeling as authentic, why would it be just, I'm not gonna get into the crazy questions, just brief. Like, what does authentic mean? If like just keep each segment kind of short.
Yeah, so authentic obviously means that the item is real. At the same time, though, when SGC assigns the designation of authentic rather than assigning a numerical grade, it's never because that's just kind of what we felt like doing at that particular moment. There's a reason for it. So on these cards, although I don't have them in front of me to really assess them one by one, what I would assume, and judging from the phone there, it looks like there's a 55 Bowman, maybe that's a 55 Bowman Maze. My assumption being that we only labeled the card as authentic, and then they were sent to PSA, and PSA decided that at least some of them would qualify for a numerical grade. Like a lot of cards from the 1950s, there are funky things that go on with these cards. As a lot of people know in our industry, there are funky things that go on after the cards leave the factory, like trimming, unfortunately, and alterations, which are done intentionally to increase the grade of a card. But then there are also some funky stuff. There's also some funky stuff that just went on back in 1955 at the Bowman Gum Factory, because simply these cards weren't looked at as investment pieces and assets. They were more cards for children to collect. So with this particular group, what I would assume is that these cards were probably attained at the same time from the same collection. In fact, they probably were manufactured one after the other and ripped open potentially even from the same pack or box. I would assume, and I'm saying assume because I don't have the cards here, that the cards basically have an odd cut to them. There's something called miscut. When a card is miscut, it usually means that off the sheet, remember these cards are printed on big sheets and then they're cut individually as cards. If that cut doesn't go well, you'll have the card that was intended to be the card cut off, and then you'll actually have most likely a piece of the next card on the sheet included on that card, if that makes any sense. So what miscut means is that there was nothing nefarious that our graders believe to have gone on after production. However, during production, there was a little bit of a slip up and the card either measures odd or the as I said, the cut is not, I guess you'd say, ideal or correct, really is probably the more appropriate term. So in this case, as I said, being that we have numerous cards from a similar era that are all designated as authentic, probably submitted in the same grading order, I would assume. It's probably that our grader saw this stack and said, oof, this is we got a funky group of cards right here.
Okay. All right, good info. And I'll have more questions as we go. Let's keep watching.
I think there's a 3.
By the way, like this guy, he sets up at every show. Great guy. I think we all can learn something from this whole thing.
Oh, I have no doubt. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah.
57 authentic. Willie at 3.
So when they label it authentic, does that mean they can't put a grade on it, but they want to label it authentic?
So in my mind here, I was thinking, why does, and it's like, I guess it could be like, I'm just not a vintage guy. And I've talked about that openly. I don't see, like, if I see it as authentic, my mind goes to, are you afraid to put a grade on it? But it sounds like you're kind of diving into like the miscut production of like maybe why you couldn't put a grade on it.
Yeah, I could tell you this. SGC, what I'm very proud of is SGC doesn't grade scared. And what I mean by that is that if we get, let's say we got a Nolan Ryan rookie and the card legitimately is in gem mint condition, there are a lot of reasons one would assume why a grading company might not want to assign that card a 10, because there's a lot of liability there. All of a sudden this card's value just shoots through the roof, and that can cause, that's a big deal in a lot of ways. So sometimes it's almost easier, safer, you would feel as a grading company, to just stay very conservative with grades. What I'm very proud of here and I'm very confident in is that we truly, although grading, as this gentleman said in the video, is subjective, when you're confident in your experts, okay, what that allows you to do is basically feel good about what you're assigning. And in this circumstance, it would never be, as I said, a choice. Do we grade it authentic or numerical? It's always a default numerical, unless we feel that it's inappropriate to grade it numerically. And the reasons for that, as I said, would be that something went wrong either at the factory, which would be the miscut designation, or the evidence of trimming designation, which basically means that we feel this card was printed correctly, and then someone basically took a blade or a paper cutter and tried to shear off that ugly edge that was keeping it from a higher numerical grade.
All right. Let's keep going.
Yeah, they find a flaw, whether it's miscut or they have some excuse. So I'm gonna show you what they come back when you switch them to PSA.
Well, PSA. PSA is my favorite.
PSA 2.5, it was authentic.
SGC labeled this authentic.
2 of them. So why don't you go ahead and,
Shocked when they did this.
yeah, hold both of them and then look at that grade. Look at that grade. Look at the one on the other one.
I haven't even looked.
So those were the authentics.
Yes. So one thing I want to mention right now, Jay, and I'm here to answer any question you have. I'm keen on doing that. The only thing I want to add that I think it would be very helpful for your viewers to understand is that card has not been graded a PSA 7. That card's been graded a PSA 7 OC, standing for off center. So our policy is actually different than PSAs. They use something called qualifiers, which basically allows you to account for a specific, I guess you'd say, flaw on a card in the way it was manufactured, but then grade it almost in a vacuum, putting aside that poor quality that they've already pointed out. So in this case, they're saying the card is off center. That's what OC stands for. But then they're saying if the card was perfectly centered, it would receive a 7 based on its edges, corners, color, that sort of thing. At SGC, we grade off-center cards, but we always account the centering into the numerical grade. So what we would not do is say this is a 9 OC. A 9 OC at SGC could be more like a 3. And the reason is because it dropped those 6 numerical points based on the very poor centering of the card.
And I have another question off the cuff. So let's bring up a 58 manual. It's kind of a card I like to buy. It's the orange background, pretty usually. It's usually off centered, stuff like that. So if PSA grades it a 3 or a 4, and I've seen SGC 3s and 2s, whatever, do you guys look at PSA at all, or is that not a thing? Like, I'd never knew if like that was a thing. Do you look at PSA's grade score when you're grading, or no?
You mean if it was a crossover?
Yeah, like if it's like if I wanted to cross it over from PSA to SGC, how does that work?
Yeah, we definitely do. I mean, remember, it's our job to get the grade as right as possible, as often an amount of time as possible. So to not factor in what another trusted third-party authenticator has provided as far as their opinion, that in our opinion would just be kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. That's good information that could lead to us making better, more informed decisions on the card itself. What we're not going to do, though, because we're not PSA and they're not SGC, what we're not going to do is say, well, they put it in a 3, it must be a 3, or they put it in a 10, it must be a 10. Okay. It's never that. It's more, though, that if PSA, for example, were to grade a card, let's just say hypothetically, and maybe this is a poor example, but let's say PSA graded that 58 mantle a 2, and we're looking at the card and we're not seeing a flaw on it, and we're at a 6 on the card. That would definitely cause us to pause, because it's, wait a second, are we not seeing something in the holder that you could see on the raw card that the PSA grader saw? And now that it's in the slab, we're just not picking up on that wrinkle on the back or whatever it may be. So as I said, we'll never factor in their grade to cross it over to our grade. But sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it could actually be very helpful to see what they thought of the card, for example, when formulating our opinions, just to see if there's a very wide delta between us and the PSA graders. There's got to be a reason for that, because it's not often that a PSA 3 will become an SGC 6 and vice versa.
Cool. All right, let's keep going.
And this is the same card right there. So authentic SGC comes back a 7 and a 2.5.
Let me ask you a question. How does this happen? So have you talked to SGC?
But I'm talking to you now, so now it makes more sense.
No, but look at this.
I think that's the cool thing about the hobby, though, you know, education and like, you know, love for collecting kind of mix in together.
One thing I want to say, Jay, also, which really makes me happy to be doing this with you right now, this happened to be on camera. That's why we're here. How many of these interactions where there's an information gap between collectors, or how collectors are kind of interpreting the policies of grading companies? This is happening every day at every card show. People are operating with false assumptions when they're buying cards online. So I'm really happy that this was put on video, because it really allowed us to commentate on something that I'm hoping further, you know, educates, I guess, your average collector to make more informed decisions, whether it's modern, vintage, or just approaching grading in general.
I like that. That's a great way to put it.
There's a Willie Mays 64-3.
So
To an
right
8.
there, if you could pause, Jay. So the 64 Mays, if you saw, we would give that a 3, because the card's centering is definitely not ideal. I can't see the whole card, but you could see that the card's pretty off center. So now let's see what PSA gave it. So now they gave it an 8 MC. So where our grader disagreed with their grader here is they looked at it and said it's likely off center enough where we're getting into the other card on the sheet, if that makes sense. Okay. We didn't feel that it was off center enough where we're assigning the designation of miscut, because that's what they gave this card. Does that make sense? Feel free to.
So are they saying it's an 8, but it's
no, they're saying it's miscut, but if it wasn't miscut, it would be an 8. And the vintage community, when the vintage community looks at this PSA 8 MC, you'll see that the secondary market prices for this card are not that of a PSA 8 64 Maze. The 64 Mazes in a PSA 8 sell for 64 Mazes in PSA 8 price. The 64 Mazes in a PSA 8 MC would likely sell, and I'm just throwing it out there as an example, but this card might sell for more of what a 4 would sell for, or even a 3, for example, because the vintage collectors understand that this card is not a true 8. It would have gotten an 8 if it wasn't miscut out of the factory.
That makes a lot more sense. Wow. Okay. That's so. I'll explain to my viewers. I had no clue. You know, I'm not. You know, I'm just. I wouldn't buy an MC. My mind goes to I'm not going to buy an MC or an OC. Let me just get like their actual graded card. You know,
and honestly, Jay, that's how the SGC team feels, because if we didn't, we would use qualifiers. PSA, with all due respect to them, it's just, you know, it's like apples and oranges, different strokes for different folks. Yeah. They believe that this is the best way, I assume, or they wouldn't be doing it. But we more feel that collectors would probably just want to get a true grade of the card, not a grade kind of assuming that something else happened, but we're going to put that aside for now. But like I said, there's no right or wrong way to this, and it's just whatever collectors prefer.
And I think that's the cool part about like the competitiveness. You know, I think in our industry right now, we're worried about monopolies. Obviously, you know, we won't get into that, but it is interesting to see like with the grading companies, like I have seen it at shows, like everybody kind of likes SGC, kind of likes PSA, kind of likes Beckett. Like you're right. Like there is differences, you know, and like when I was collecting when I was 14, Beckett, like I'd get a submission back and it was like you wanted like all gold from Beckett, or now it's like now everybody wants a crisp PSA 10 or vintage, like SGC, like you want a vintage card in an SGC. It's kind of like just, you know, it's different for everybody, which is cool.
Yeah, the one thing that's really nice about the hobby is it's certainly not set in stone, because if it was, the SGC team would be 10 people strong and we'd be grading 200 cards a day. At this point, we're grading as many as 7,000 a day. So,
Wow.
the good news is the hobby learns, the hobby adjusts. And I think that how we feel right now, we're in a much better place, not only at SGC, but just as a hobby than we were a few years ago. And I think conversations like this help everyone move in a better direction towards just, I guess, the reality of the policies and how those policies, can affect collectors and things like that. So it's a lack of information is like SGC's worst enemy. We want collectors to be more informed rather than less informed because we feel that that will benefit our brand, in all honesty, as well as the hobby, better than obviously if the opposite was the case.
All right, let's keep it going. Ready?
I mean, when they graded those, some people would get discouraged and dump those.
Right.
But you decided to stick with it.
Authentic 57 mantle to a 3, which is centered.
So, okay, so how about this one? Like authentic to a 3. Is that
What I couldn't see, Jay, is what the authentic designation on the SGC was. That would help me a lot.
Mantle.
It's too hard to see.
I wonder, so for example, on this one, I would assume that we felt that there was an irregular edge on the card, and I'm just assuming. I would assume that we felt that there was an irregular edge on the card that appeared basically as unnatural. We graded the card as evidence of trimming. The PSA grader saw likely that same edge and had a different opinion on it.
There you go.
One thing I also want to say for everyone is also remember this exact situation happens in the reverse constantly. Remember, PSA has obviously been a grading powerhouse in the hobby for over 20 years, and SGC's been along for the ride the whole time as well. So what would often happen is a collector would send a card, let's say, to PSA. The PSA grade that came back, or the lack thereof, if they called a card trimmed, that would cause dissatisfaction with the submitter. The submitter would say, you know what, I'm going to send this to SGC and see if they agree with me that it's deserving of a loftier grade or a numerical grade at all. And from there, the PSA authentic would often turn into an SGC numerical grade. The thing to keep in mind is that most of the time, this isn't the case. Where it is often the case is when a card is funky. And that's what I'm saying. This gentleman probably, whether it was a big lot deal he picked up, or he may have just by chance hit a few oddly cut or kind of on the borderline of graded cards. Like, in other words, it's not always easy to decide if a card's a 3 or a 3.5, to decide if the card's a 9 or if it's trimmed. And where things get hard is when the decision's really, really close. And what I'm saying is these cards likely are all really, really close, because if not, you would assume that SGC's grades primarily are pretty close to PSA's and vice versa, as I said.
Okay. All right, let's keep going.
Crossover SGC 9 to the 9s.
What's the value difference there as an authentic versus 3?
Oh my God.
Thousands?
That guy.
Huge. Well, that's probably a good $700 difference in that card. 600. And then this was authentic, and it's a 6. There's no qualifiers for this one.
See, so this one, I would definitely assume, as I said, that we're looking at an evidence of trimming type situation. If they're not
saying it's poorly off-centered there, though, look at it. Or is it just messed up?
No, it's likely. I mean, remember, my team looked at the card and said this card should not qualify for a numerical grade. There's also a designation, not to throw too much information at everyone at once, but in addition to miscut that we've covered, which is a wrong cut out of the factory back when the card was manufactured, then there's evidence of trimming, which is when someone has intentionally altered a card. But then there's also something called minimum size not met, which means that the card doesn't show any sign of being trimmed, but it was manufactured too small. Vintage cards, being that they were produced using, not the best technology, and again, without the best QA process because they weren't worth very much, cards come too big, cards come too small. We may have felt that this card was either cut too small or trimmed. Clearly, PSA disagreed. Now, if you ask me, well, who got it right? I know my experts. I don't know theirs. I'm not saying that my experts never make a mistake or get it right 100% of the time, but we do have really good experts. Now, so do they, I'm sure. But as I said, what this tells me is that these cards likely, there was a lot of, I keep using the word funky stuff. There was a lot of close calls here, and we went left and they went right, for example.
Okay. Let's keep going.
Here's the
It's the exact card.
exact same card, authentic.
So what's your take? SGC got this wrong.
No, I actually think SGC always does this. If you've got
What is he saying there?
a card that's miscut or anything off, they just feel comfortable just going, it's authentic, and that's it.
He's so unashamed. He's correct. If the card
Yeah.
is miscut, we say the card's miscut and it does not qualify for a numerical grade. If you have cards that you're looking at and you feel they're probably miscut and you want a numerical grade on them, don't send them to SGC
That
because
makes
we
sense.
don't go about our business that way.
So knowing what we know now, it makes more sense what he's saying. And it's not like a slam, it's just like this is not the way you do things.
That's exactly right. And just to be clear, for anyone in your audience that doesn't collect vintage cards or doesn't know that much about them, this is a rare circumstance. Most cards aren't miscut, or you'd see at a card show, every vintage card is, either labeled authentic or OC or MC. This is definitely the minority of the situations that arise at a grading company rather than the majority. But it's in the minority when a lot of these discrepancies between companies can take place.
Okay.
Because I sent those in Dallas 3 months ago, got them back, discouraged as all heck. And I'm like, no, I sent them to PSA and they come back and they grade. Now there's some qualifiers being a miscut, but a 7 miscut from an authentic is a vast difference.
To sum this story up, he sends these cards to SGC. They come back authentic, come back funny grades, sends to PSA and absolutely destroys it. So are you discouraged from sending to SGC after that?
Yes, I've got some manels at home that are SGC authentic, and they are going to PSA.
So I don't know. I guess it's like that old adage, like knowing what we know now. But I mean, it's just like it's not an up for debate thing. It's just the way things are done is what I feel after like talking to you about this.
Yeah, Jay, I could even tell you, like, being as transparent as possible with your viewers, because I would assume they can see me now while we're watching this video.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It's never my favorite situation to hear any customer that sent cards to SGC think about it and say, you know what? Yeah, I am discouraged from sending cards to SGC. That stinks. But you know what? There's no I'm sorries. There's no apologies. There's not even really much I feel all that bad about, because my experts, our team's experts, the SGC graders, looked at these cards in a vacuum and gave the opinion to the best of their ability on what they thought was going on with these cards. And sometimes collectors either disagree or they just they're not happy, because even financially there are implications to grading. Obviously, that's something, I more want to just thank them for giving us cards in Dallas, that sort of thing. I want every collector to feel appreciated, obviously, and it really stinks when one is dissatisfied. But as you can imagine, Jay, our inbox and PSA's inbox are filled with countless emails basically saying, I think you got this grade wrong. And, the thing that we can do is we take in the information and we really assess it, because sometimes, again, we can get a grade wrong. We're not under the impression we're perfect, but there's not really much to apologize for when we just gave the card a grade as objectively as possible, and it's not what you wanted. Obviously, everyone wants their cards to not only grade numerically, but they're all 10s, and that's just not always the reality.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And, I appreciate you stepping up here. I learned a lot, of course, and I think my viewers did as well. I think that's the cool thing about like the channel. Like my intent is never to throw anybody under the bus. Like at the end of the day, like I just want to like, I want people to see like real life, like how things, like we don't plan any of our recording. It just happens. And it seemed like an interesting story. I picked up on it, and I don't know, now knowing what I know now, it's almost like you studied for the wrong final exam type feeling. You know, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like
Well, this is what I could say. Like you said, I never try to throw anyone under the bus. When SGC makes a mistake, when we do something wrong, when we let's say we grade a card that was counterfeit, which really doesn't happen, but let's just say it did happen. Throw us under the bus. I think that it's important that the content creators of our space that obviously have massive influence on the majority of the collectors in the hobby, I think it's important that it's okay to throw companies under the bus when it's rightfully so. I think we're almost and it's all love, Jay, but where the mistake was made here is that we just graded the cards objectively, to the best of our ability at least, and that's what it is. If we were to take one of his cards and bend him in half and not call him to say that we damaged his card and we owe him some money, throw the SGC brand under the bus. I want to be clear about that. It's not all happy, great things, but it's just important to recognize that when a collector disagrees with a grade, or even different grading companies disagree on a grade, that's the area where throwing under the bus probably isn't effective, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're here now, right? You know,
For sure.
this is the best part about the hobby is I don't think everything is like black and white when situations like this come up. I think that's where you just got to open up, and like you're a stand-up guy, you know, we're trying to be stand up as a brand, you know, trying to educate and keep people like aware of these things. And even I got to tell you, I took the crash course just now.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to do it, man. And
Yeah.
why would you know? I say this all the time. Where in the hobby do you get content with any kind of entertainment value whatsoever? So it actually keeps your interest, where people are talking about these things. There are a lot of channels where they talk about vintage cards, but I'd argue most of those channels are targeting the vintage collectors who have been in this hobby for 20 years. Your audience is likely, I would assume, a younger audience, an audience that's more geared towards modern cards. And I say it all the time, it's kind of corny, but let's just remember that every vintage card was once a modern card, and
Yeah.
every modern card today will be a vintage card. So it's like, even if you have a preference of an era, you appreciate, patch auto cards more than T206s, it can't hurt just to develop an understanding, and with that, usually an appreciation for kind of the whole spectrum of trading cards, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Man, Peter, I appreciate you. Appreciate you stepping up, and I definitely want to film some more content with you guys and like educate if I can help you or you can help me in any way. And then to our viewers, I guess I have one last question. What's like one goal before the end of this year that you guys want to achieve at SGC? Like, what's something you guys are striving for coming into the last quarter of the year?
It's tough to say the last quarter. We have a lot of goals here. A lot of them we're thinking will probably carry into early quarter 1 of next year. So I think that all of our goals happen to fall one quarter behind, kind of the time frame that you provided. But I think a big thing, we love these promotions. Like today, our Topps Chrome, the Topps collaboration that we've done with the $9 grading on specific sets. That is so much fun. I mean, honestly, I was going on a boat the other day. It was a weekend, and I was going on a family member's boat, and I'm on the dock about to step onto the boat, and a person says, "Are you the SGC guy?" And I go, "Oh my God, you recognize me? I am." And he goes, "Man, I love you guys. I really love those $9 specials." And it just that means something to us. It's a lot of fun. And what we find is there are so many people that have never graded cards before that take advantage of those specials to do so. So what we're really hoping is we could squeeze in one more promotion to kind of end the year, but that remains to be seen. So if I'm looking short-term goal, that's probably it. Longer term, I'm going to keep those in my back pocket because they're very creative, and we're looking forward to sending those live.
All right, I can't wait, man.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Drop a like, drop a comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Take advantage of the SGC specials. Peter's a stand-up guy. Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks again, Jay. Appreciate you having me.
I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like, leave a comment, don't forget to subscribe. Huge shout out to Peter. I'm telling you guys, SGC, Peter, just an overall great company. And, he just, I've always said it for years, you can have a great business acumen, but if you don't have good character, what's the point? And, that to me, what him coming on this call and not only educating me, but hopefully helping people in the community, that's pretty good stuff right there. So shout out to SGC, shout out to Peter. Another Vlogmas episode in the books. Obviously, I'm on the road, guys, right now. So I wanted to get a different video up and, stay tuned. There's some more content coming out. Got a few more days of Vlogmas. I appreciate all you guys that have been here. Make sure you hit that subscribe. We've got merch down below, brand new merch. If you guys want to support the brand, rep the brand at the next show. It'll all ship the week of January 1st. And I appreciate you guys as always. We'll talk to you guys later. See ya.